Welcome back to another episode of Andy's House of Gears. I'm actually under the Buick right now. It's really stinking cold out, but I'm still trying to keep busy. I got my little fire burning over there in the wood burner, and I'm laying on some plywood here. And I'm gonna yank the transmission out of this car again. Um, I've done a lot of research, and I didn't. I totally spaced this off. I should have probably known better. But I'm going to show you what's going on here and why I'm pulling this transmission out again. See, this is why, I don't know if you can see or not, this is why I'm pulling it back apart. Um, the flat style flex plate that I have on my 5.3 here doesn't quite match up to my torque converter. GM sells a spacer that moves it out 400ths, and it'll work perfectly. I mean, that's exactly what I need it to do. So when that spacer shows up, I actually got mine from Summit Racing. I'll show you more of what it does. Basically, what I'm going to do is just add a little extra to the back of the crankshaft and move this flex plate out 400ths of an inch, and it'll bring out that gap, because I'm supposed to have a 1/4 inch slide back and forth on this torque converter. But if I go too far out, it'll pull out of the pump in the transmission, and it'll ruin the splines and stuff. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but that's what I need to do. So the kit comes with longer bolts and everything, so should be just plenty strong. I did talk to a transmission guy just the other day, and he had to go a whole different way because he was snapping bolts off, but he was like 1200 horsepower. I'm like gonna be 600, so I should be just fine. But I've already gone ahead. I pulled out the transmission cross member. It's hard to see, it's right here. I only have 2 bell housing bolts left. I got the engine stood up here on some blocks and everything. It's nice and sturdy because I don't want the engine rocking back and hitting the firewall. So I got that, but I should have plenty of clearance to get the bell housing and everything down out of here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my jack out, put it underneath this transmission pan. I'm going to take these 2 lower bell housing bolts off, and I'll have this transmission out of here in like no time, hopefully. And hopefully I don't mess up this tunnel too bad. That's my plan anyway. So I'm going to get to it. Ordered flux plate spacer. So open it up here. Oh. There it is. No. Okay, these are the longer bolts, and should have just a little metal ring here. This backside goes up against the crankshaft, then your flex plate bolts on the front of this, or goes on this, then your bolts go on, and this puts the center point of your torque converter right in here. Right inside here, so you don't have any vibration issues or nothing. So if I would have had a dished flex plate on our earlier, was it 99 2000 5.3 and 6.0, I wouldn't need any of this stuff at all. It'd bolt right up. But because I have an 06 Gen 3 5.3 truck motor, I need this. So I don't have to change starter or nothing. So I'm going to apologize if I'm shaky. I'm holding this. I'm going to try this with one hand. So spacer should fit right on here. Let's see here. It's a little alignment hole. I guess it really doesn't matter which one it is. It goes on there like so. Trying to get the holes close. And the flex plate here just sits up here. Like so. I did have to do something else too. The metric holes and the standard what's it called? Torque converter? I might have that backwards. The holes were a little farther back here, so what I did was I filled them in and drilled a little bit lower hole so the torque converter bolts directly to the flex plate. I know they don't look exactly pretty. They're not too bad. but I didn't want huge elongated holes. They weren't going to be big, but this way I just thought that it would fit better. So I didn't have to do that, but I did it. So just going to put this bad boy in here. And I am going to be torquing these down. I got to look up the spec. I don't have the spec yet. I got to make a phone call to my Faja for that. He's got all that cool stuff. I'm sure I could look it up online, but I like bugging him. So I'm going to get the rest of these bolts in and get it torqued down, and we'll go from there. It should be perfect because the front of the pump or front of the torque converter should fit right in here. Shouldn't have any issues. So I got the bolts all put on, torqued down. I got them at 74 foot-pounds. I just torqued them down. I started like right here. Went down, up, over, kind of like a star pattern. So pretty super simple. So now I'm going to jump out, start working on the trans. I'm just going to clean it up, throw a coat of paint on it, and shove it back in here. So I figured I'd do something while I'm waiting for the transmission to dry. I have it sitting up there close to the fire so it can cure that paint. But I'm going to we're going to do a guesstimate on this rear end. So what I'm going to do is, this only works on posi. I just made a little mark here. If you had a piece of chalk, whatever, I would do that. But I got it set at 12 o'clock. And then back here on the yoke, you see that little tab right there? I got another piece of tape there. So what I'm going to do here is rotate the drum around here and watch the yoke, and we're going to count how many revolutions it takes for the yoke, how many revolutions it takes between the yoke and the drum here. So we're just going to go around. There's one. There's two. And then just a little bit more. I'm guessing this is about a 224 rear end. So I'm going to do that again here. I'm going to put it, let's go back. Kind of put it like top dead center here. So you see it's lined up top dead center here. Top dead center there. We're going to rotate. Here's one revolution of the yoke. Two revolutions of the yoke. And we got like, that's a quarter, so in between there. So up to there. This is just a guesstimate. Good way to find out, just quick, what gearing you might have. So if it would have had like a 373, you would have gone almost 4 times around on the yoke before your drum mark got back to top dead center. So if it would have been like a 323, it would have been 3 revolutions of the yoke, and then it would have ended up like somewhere over here, just a little bit past center. So that's just a quick little trick. So I got my torque converters here, and I'm trying to decide which ones I want to use. This one's an aftermarket one. It came in my BOP trans. This is the one that came out of the Pontiac, which is weird because the Pontiac had a Chevy 305 in it. So they're almost identical transmissions, except the bell housings are different. But I don't know anything about either of these transmissions, if this transmission's any good or anything. So here's the fluid out of this torque converter. It's like almost brand new. But then I got the fluid here out of that one. It's not completely terrible, but it's hard to tell. There's still some pink to it. I don't know if that's residual, but yeah. I think I'm going to go with this one. Put this one in since it's just got the cleaner fluid in it. And I don't even know if that transmission's any good anyway, so we're just going to run it and see what happens. So I ran into an issue with that other pump. I don't know if it would have done it with the same thing with the other pump or the other torque converter that was on here, but I'm flush up against my flex plate and it's tight. I can rotate the engine over and it turns the torque converter here, which is bad because that means it's putting pressure on the front of the pump and on the bearings of the engine. So I got to figure out a way to open this up. There's supposed to be a little bit of play in there. You want the flex plate to flex. So I'm going to try to figure out what I can do here. Well, I'm on day 2 of this transmission. It's not hard to put in at all. I've wrestled this thing up here like 4 times myself, but the issue I'm running into is I put that spacer on there. It's supposed to be like a direct fit and everything. But when I put my torque converter in, I don't know if my torque converter's not far enough back. I've checked it like 10 times. I've done both the torque converters. So the issue I'm running into is it's putting the torque converter, I believe, to be all the way back, but it's flush up against the flex plate. It should have a maximum of like a 1/4 inch play for the torque converter, and I don't remember the minimum clearance, but there's no clearance, so I know something's not right. So I have it bolted up there right now, and I was going to leave it, but then I was like, well, it's just going to ruin my bearings in my engine or take out the pump or something in the transmission if this transmission's any good. So I'm going to take it back out again, and I'm going to just show you here real quick. Well, I've had this transmission out 7 times now, just trying to get that clearance, and I finally figured out what it was. And I've checked this like every single time. The torque converter was not sitting all the way back, and it was like fractions of like millimeters that was giving me the issue. So I've had this thing out a bunch of stinging times. I mean, I checked it. It seemed like every time I was putting it up there, I would move it just a little bit and tilt forward. It'd just slip out just that little bit. Then when I bolt it up there, it'd just get caught. And yeah, I mean, fractions of millimeters. So I'll show you here what I got here. See, this is what I need. I need this to have room to work here. It's supposed to slide a little bit on that pump shaft. So now I just gotta bolt it all together, get it lined up with my flex plate, put my bolts in. I did trim this tab a little bit. I took off a little bit as well. So these had really big lugs on them. They were almost like, they were literally like bolts welded on there. So I did shave it down a little bit, but finally got it to where I need it to be. Hopefully my bolts aren't too long now. I might go check and see if I have a shorter pair of torque converter bolts, just in case the bolts are too long and they hit the actual torque converter. So, well, I think I'm going to call it a day, because this thing's been kicking my behind and I'm exhausted. Like, I put that in there by myself 7 times and I was getting pretty good at it. It's kind of doing my Kegel exercises using the jack with my legs. So it was kind of funny. You know those little things you stick between your thighs and you crunch them together? That's basically what I was doing with the jack handle. I had to squeeze it and jack it with my hips and hold it up there, try to hold it with my hands on the jack. So, whew, I am beat up. I have my workout for today, that's for sure. And I am beat. So, thank you for joining me. And please like, subscribe to the channel. And hopefully I'll be able to keep putting out these little videos on this build. I know this probably wasn't the most exciting thing, but it's stuff you got to do and issues you run into when you're using all sorts of different parts trying to mate them together. So I got it figured out. get this thing buttoned up, get the cross member back in it. Hopefully I can order some more parts here in the next couple days. So, well, please, like I said, like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. We'll catch you next time.